Good afternoon to everybody. This is the third webinar organized within the project E.Wa.S. And today we will have an expert that is Dr. Mauro Forteschi from the Regional Agency of Forestry of Sardinia, FORESTAS, and he will specifically present a webinar on the topic of nursery management, the experience of FORESTAS, interactive meeting with expert Dr. Mauro Forteschi and nursery managers. Please, Dr. Forteschi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Quirico. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm here to tell you a story about the experience of FORESTAS in the nursery management, especially about the nursery of Campolongo, close to Oristano City in Sardinia. And first of all, I want to tell you who is FORESTAS and why FORESTAS have nurseries. So FORESTAS is a regional structure, is a technical and structure for the environment management of regional Sardinia. And the role of FORESTAS is management, promotion, support, technical administrative support on environment and forestry issues. And FORESTAS has assumed a huge role preserving the forestal heritage of Sardinia. She has a huge impact on preserving environment and managing the forestal resource. Why FORESTAS was born? The main reason was because 2 centuries ago, the entire region was subjected to the severe deforestation practice because it was Sardinian forest was exploited because there was a huge need of forest food, charcoal, and also to build the railway network of Italy. So a huge amount of forests were cut down, and this caused obviously soil erosion and a lot of environmental problems like loss of biodiversity and a lot of problems about water management. So after this period of deforestation in the last century, the awareness of this effect was recall a kind of sensitivity about the reforestation necessities. So there was a huge action of planting trees about all the Sardinian region, but plant this huge amount of trees is not easy. So the challenges that were faced was first of all the selection of the species, because at that time the engineer that planned the reforestation have to choose the species, not use it, and it was essential to select native tree species in order to preserve the specificity of the environment, the availability of plant material, also the maintenance of new planting, the public awareness of this intervention. The forestal nurseries faces the problem of the availability of the new plants. So FORESTAS agency start to build nurseries to satisfy the need of new plants. So initially, many of the nurseries was exclusively devoted to the production of plant for reforestation action. But when the reforestation action were almost done, there has been an evolution of the role of these nurseries. And now they are not only linked to the production of plants, but also for educational purposes. And some of them are devoted to develop new cultivation techniques. And the nursery of FORESTAS are spread, I don't know if you can see my arrow, are spread on all the Sardinia region, and all of the nurseries produce the species that are typical of each area. So we produce especially species for Mediterranean environment, and all the nurseries contribute to the biodiversity conservation. They are obviously helpful for restoration of the environment. The restoration of the environment fight the climate change and protect the soil. So this is explosion of the concept I have just already said. So now take a closer look to the Campolongo nursery. That is located in the middle of Sardinia, close to the city of Oristano. It's not far away from other cities of Sardinia. So it's located in a place that it's easily to reach from everywhere in Sardinia, and is the one of the most important structures for forest plant production in Sardinia. This is a view of the nursery. It is included in a wider area, larger than 115 hectares, and there is not only the nursery, but there is the place where the FORESTAS employee used to work. And the nursery is structured in this way. There is the outdoor growing place. There is a water, it's like a swimming pool, but it's a container that we use to preserve the water for irrigation. And there are some greenhouses in this area. Okay. So Campolongo plays, obviously, like the other nurseries of FORESTAS, a role on the enhancement of the natural heritage of forests of Sardinia. It's a pilot nursery because it produces Phytophthora-free plants for reforestation. And now Campolongo, it's considered a model because we set a standard production, a standard way to produce plants that will be implemented in many other facilities. Okay, so now just a couple of slides about Phytophthora, because just to see why we need to produce plant without Phytophthora. Phytophthora is a pathogen that causing decay and death in plants. In Sardinia, there is a huge problem about Phytophthora because our forests are really affected by this pathogen. Why Sardinia is affected? There is a combination of factors. Factors can be climate factor. there is a problem because the global warming caused summer that are very, very hot, and there is no a real winter on the last on the past years. So in the past, the snow at a very cold winter have an effect about to how to say reduce the vitality of some pathogen, but the high temperature in winter help pathogen to survive winter. So we have we don't have this effect about concerning the reducing of the vitality of the pathogen. So the forest management practices are also the lack of forest management are a factor that make Sardinian forest susceptible to Phytophthora. Also, the soil condition have an effect, but most of the problem that we face is the introduction of pathogens by infected plant materials. The infected plant materials contaminated soils, and so we have the presence of pathogen in the environment. Obviously, there is the problem is not only of tree health. There is forest dieback is a problem because the environment suffer. There is a loss of biodiversity and also economic damage. Just a couple of images about how the forest was last summer. Just to understand that the problem is not about a single tree, but invest a huge territory, a huge number of plants, and it's very, very huge problem in Sardinia. Okay, this is the so we need a strategy to reduce the impact of this pathogen. So what is being done? Activity of monitoring, research, and containment has been planned, and to face the problem of to avoid the introduction of pathogen in the environment. In the nurseries, Phytophthora is the spread of the Phytophthora in the nursery is caused by high humidity and high plant density, wrong cultivation technique in general. So in Campolongo nurseries, we set up a protocol to preventing the spread of Phytophthora. We start about selection the propagation material. We actually in the forest nurseries actually collect the seeds from the tree, so we don't buy plants or seeds. We use sterile soil that we sterilize in the nursery. We will see some slide about that. We also avoid water stagnation to ensure to avoid the contact of plants with water that could be contaminated by Phytophthora. So we pay very high attention of the use of water in the nursery, and we also set up a protocol to care the disinfection of tools and also the cultivation techniques. And obviously, at the end, we monitor the results. We check if some pathogen, some plants show symptoms to isolate them. Okay, just one slide about the selection of seeds. Why we start cultivation from seeds? Sorry. If you start cultivation by seeds, you are preserving the genetic diversity of the environment. Also, you improve the quality of plant because the quality of roots are higher when plants are propagated by seeds. And also, we have the chance to protect and preserve species that are threatened or rare for your environment. In many nurseries, there is no economical convenience to cultivate some plants, and for some nurseries, instead cultivate plants that maybe have no market but are important from the point of view of biodiversity. Okay, and seeds are came from a sampling area that are recorded and came from plants that doesn't show symptoms of disease or infected by any pest, or plants have to be healthy to be a candidate for be plants that give the seeds for the cultivation. Okay. Start with soil management. In Campolongo nurseries, we use a substrate of cultivation that are sterilized or heated, treated by steam. Why? Because sterilization is useful to eliminate pathogens, insect, weed, or other seeds that could be harmful for the new plants. Sterilization by steam is useful because it's effective. It was tested in a lot of conditions. Is natural. There is no chemical residues in the substrate, so the substrate is safe to be used for grow up the plants. It can be applied to different types of substrate. It works on every kind of substrate without any problem. Doesn't need any further treatments, so it's very useful technique. The main parameters that influence the effectiveness of the sterilization are temperature. High temperature and high humidity leads to the optimal sterilization instead of low temperature and low humidity. Temperature and time are the couple of factors that are the most important factors to the inactivation of microorganisms, because the effect of sterilization is about denaturing the protein of the membranes of the microorganisms, so you can kill them. So temperature and time. There are a couple of parameters now. Maybe it's not necessary to get inside the details, but time and temperature is the key factor of the treatment. Also, the level of humidity and the pressure are also important factor. The main parameter of sterilization, 121 degrees for 50 minutes, is mostly a standard cycle. But sterilization process should be tailored about your needs should be monitored about its real effectiveness. So in order to check if sterilization was if the substrate was effectively sterile or not. The main components of sterilization system is the sterilization chamber, the steam generator in case of the sterilization by steam, of course, and the steam distribution system. This is a sterilization apparatus that we can find in the laboratory, but when you use on nurseries, you can use steam directly on the soil. You have to cover the soil with a canvas or other material that avoid the steam to let the substrate, because you have to keep the steam inside the substrate that you want to sterilize. Or you can put the soil inside a container and inflate the steam inside. Okay, this is a system that we use in Campolongo to prepare the cultivation substrate. Obviously, the steam have to be generated by some steam generator. This is exactly the one that we use in Campolongo. There is a heat source that can be the heat that could be generated by electricity or gasoline or biomass. Everything you have available in your area. One particularity of the steam generation system is that you need to introduce clean water, because water that have debris or are not in many systems, you need to use a distilled water, because the water with salts, high amount of salts or stuff like that, cause damage of the system. After you generate the steam, you have to obviously distribute the steam inside your substrate. Okay, obviously, every system have a temperature and pressure control system. The part of the system that drain the excess of humidity, and tool that allow you to load the substrate or unload. But the main part of the system are steam, the sterilization chamber, and the steam generator. Okay. So how you sterilize the substrate? You have to load the substrate inside the sterilization chamber, or you put the canvas above the substrate. You start to heating and produce the steam. You put the substrate and the steam in contact. There is a temperature maintenance period time that when the sterilization takes place. After you let to cool, unload the substrate, you can use it for the cultivation. And this is the part about the treatment of substrate that we perform in the Campolongo nurseries. The cultivation technique regards also the avoid of water stagnation and avoid the contact with water, the contact between plants, the roots of the plants, and the water. So we cultivate the plants not in contact with the soil, but we raise the pallets from the soil. Whereas the plants In the area when we cultivate the plants outside of the greenhouses, we spread some gravel on the ground to avoid the contact between the bottom of the pot and the soil. And also we use water that is not from the sink that we have, but we dig a sink very deep, and we use that water that is found to be clean and without pathogens. In the picture is not the Campolongo nurseries, but this one is the real one. Okay, we cultivate the plants not in the ground, but 1 meter up above the ground. You can see the greenhouses are allow the water to circulate, so there is no condense on the wall, and everything is clear. And this is the environment where we grow up the plants for the first months after the seed germination. Okay. After that, we use the hygiene measures, because we trained the workers that work in the nursery to use this, to pay attention about their equipment, that it's always clean and disinfected and by hypochlorite to deactivate the Phytophthora. We disinfect the containers. Actually, we in the first years we only disinfect the containers, like the pot, like the other containers that we use. After the first years, we found to be more convenient to buy every time a new container. So we don't need to disinfect, but we always use a new one. Obviously, we control the water that we use for irrigation. For instance, we don't use irrigation by rain. We don't spread water by rain irrigation, but only by we put some water in the at the top of the container where we put the pot, and after we irrigate the plants, we completely dry the container to avoid the stagnation of water. Also, other hygiene measures is isolation of infected plants. Well, we don't find much more infected plants when we use this protocol. Obviously, use of sterile substrate and pest control. But we don't use pesticide or stuff like that, because after I will show you the results. If you use sterile substrate, if you avoid the contact with water, unless if you are irrigating the plants, of course. If you use properly all of this technique, you have no necessity to control the pest. Obviously, you have to train your staff, because it's not a normal work on nursery. The staff that work in the nursery must be trained how to recognize Phytophthora, how to prevent Phytophthora, how to sterilize their tools. All this aspect is important. Okay. After that, we regularly inspect the plants, make a substrate analysis to check if sterilization is really effective. We take a regular test to check if the water used for irrigation is phytophthora-free. If we have some incoming plants in the nursery, we check about, we carefully inspect the new plants. We have an area of the nursery where the plants are recovered. They don't keep in. They don't have no contacts with the other plants. And people that manage that plants have to clean their hands, the tools, the shoes before to enter in an area that we use to produce plant phytophthora-free. Okay, and obviously also the monitoring of environmental condition because to check if there are environmental condition, if the weather condition could help Phytophthora to spread. Okay, so I already show you this slide. We perform all this step to get Phytophthora free plants. And this is in practice what happened. Can you say the plant containers are not on the soil? This substrate is sterile substrate. We are seeding in the new containers. People doesn't use their hands, but they wear gloves, and so we cultivate in protect environment. We inspect the ceiling. We try the staff, the nursery, sterilize the instruments. We isolate the infected plants, but I already told you we don't have a lot of infected plants. So the result was that during the first 2 years of nursery production, all one plants of Myrtus communis was found positive during the monitoring in the first years, where in the second years, no Phytophthora was isolated in 10,000 plants grow in the second year of cultivation, with more than 100 pests conducted. So after we see these positive results, we start to implement this innovative plant production in other factories managed by FORESTAS. We made a large investment to get the other nursery ready to perform the same production. And next year, other 2 nurseries will be able to produce plants in the same way that Campolongo does. Okay, thank you. I've done.
Thank you very much, Dr. Forteschi. Thank you, Mauro, for this nice presentation. And I see that meanwhile our friends from Germany have connected, so I wonder if there are some questions from you.
Yes, Doctor, are you getting me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for this particular training on the plant diseases, especially in the nursery. If I take you back on the issue of sterilization, it's a very good concept and a good technology, but I'm looking at how cells selective is it in terms of the microorganisms that the process may destroy? Because we know the soil, for it to be very productive, needs a certain amount of microorganisms to improve the physical characteristics. So if the process clears the microorganisms, how relevant would that technology be in terms of giving health and life to the soil that we need? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. You're right, because sterilization is a practice that kill all the microorganisms in the soil. So there is no only pathogen microorganisms. So if I get your question, there is a problem if you kill all the microorganisms, because most of them are positive, not just negative, no pathogens. But in the particular situation of nurseries where you have to avoid contamination, you have to sterilize just a little portion of soil. Is the portion that allow you to introduce in the environment plants that are free of pathogens. So I think the amount of soil that you use is not relevant about the it's not a big problem. Sterilization technique usually kills all the microorganisms, so it's why we use this solution, because we need to produce plants that are free of pathogens. In this specific phase of the process, we prefer erase all the microorganisms and be safe instead that try to preserve something. I hope I got your question. I answered your question.
If I may also add something, Mauro, and the question is very, very important. In fact, when you do steaming, especially not only for, in our case, it's just for producing seedlings. So it's very quick process. Also, the extension of the time is very quick. But in other crops, like for instance, when you have to produce horticultural crops like basil or other, it's frequently observed that after steaming the soil, you get, for instance, accumulation of imbalancing microbial communities, and sometimes you have an excess in some nitrogen compounds that may even be phytotoxic. But in this case, the time is very short, that allows germination, and then after there will be certainly a recolonization from the natural microflora. But most importantly, the pathogen is absent, has been removed, if any. What it could be also possible is that after steaming, the substrate could be recolonized by specific microbial communities that we would like to introduce. Like, for instance, we will discuss next week about the trichoderma. This is a biological control that you probably know already, or there are some other synthetic communities that can be developed. Or even if you are able to localize or to identify some areas where you are sure that the pathogen is absent, you may even mix a small portion of these soils with the steamed soils, sterilized soils, so that a new community will be emerging, but it will be a clean community. I mean, a complete community, but with no pathogen inside. And this is another approach that could be applied in this case. In all circumstances, I think that Mauro Forteschi made it very clear. A nursery is like a laboratory. We cannot consider a nursery like a farm. It's a laboratory that needs to get all the cautions and the precautions that are needed in a laboratory, because we are producing small plants, nursery plants. So we have to enter to clean the shoes, to like the last seminar of Professor Bruno Scano was also emphasized this aspect. We need to clean the substrate, clean the water, but we avoid reintroduction of the pathogens. Otherwise, everything is lost.
Yes, another thing, critical, sorry. We have to be aware that the plants that we produce in the nursery go everywhere. So if you produce plants that have a pathogen, you don't only produce plants with pathogen. Well, you spread the pathogen everywhere. So it's a huge source of contamination. Is the reason why you need very, very clean, pay a lot of attention and pay every effort to avoid that. Just this.
Yes, last week I was attending the conference in Riyadh, the conference of the parties of the UNCCD, the United Nations Convention for Desertification, and there is a big emphasis on these initiatives like the Great Green Wall Initiative, but there are also similar initiatives in the China, for instance, or in other parts of the world. And people think that the planting trees is just the panacea, the solution for all the problems of desertification. But this is not like that. And in fact, there is a big issue, and I have produced also a document that was given to the African community, African Union agency for the Great Green Wall Initiative, that is the SAFGRAD, to warn about the importance of obtaining nursery material that is absolutely clean. Otherwise, we will spread pathogens everywhere. And especially in the initiatives like the Great Green Wall Initiative that involve the local communities. And there is a lot of emphasis on this help giving work, obviously, to the people to improve the social status of the people. But when you set up a nursery, you have to do it in a very, very clean way. It's not something that can be just organized with no knowledge. So people needs to be trained, and there is a lot of need for capacity building, especially at local level in the local communities, because they will have a big responsibility for producing these plants for afforestation programs.
Thank you so much. I think the explanation has been well received. I see how a new community may are more positive to the soil. I think that is the most important I was able to get of it. Overall, the sanitation of NASA is really vital. Thank you so much.
Thank you for attending. And as usual, this webinar will be available for other persons that might be interested in it. I don't know how many of you are attending now at the moment, but it will be available in our and the YouTube live streaming website. And are there any other questions? If not, I thank you very much. I really thank Dr. Mauro Forteschi. Yes, go ahead, please. Please.
Yes, doctor. When you look at our case here, yes, we already have the nursery that you've supported us with. That component of periodically monitoring for presence of Phytophthora I think that we don't have that component, and we don't have the infrastructure for that particular thing. I would think that would be a very important component that to produce seedlings free from infections or fungi or any other disease. To monitor it periodically. Yes, how do we monitor? Monitor maybe from the symptoms we see from our plants. Yes, to avoid that if there was a system to track maybe from the substrate point of view. So our facility still lacks that infrastructure to monitor it before it emerges in the seedlings that we shall. Yeah, thank you.
The connection was very disturbed, but maybe I can try to understand. I think I understood that you said it is very important the monitoring of the disease emergence during the cultivation of the seedlings and the production of the plants. So, Mauro, can you comment on how does the Campo Longo nursery carry out this monitoring of the presence of the pathogen?
Yes, of course. We have a strong connection with the university and also with the other regional agency, and they come to our nursery to take samples and do the analysis for monitoring if there is a pathogen. Campo Longo Nursery was established in collaboration with the university, and I don't remember which was the agency. You know, Quirico, which maybe it was Laura. I don't remember. But actually, it was a effort of more than one subject. We don't perform personally the analysis of another subject that does it for us.
Okay. Do they sample soil or seedlings or plants?
Both.
Both. So periodically they come, they collect
At
samples.
the beginning of when we started producing this way, there was a periodically sampling. More than I don't remember exactly, but maybe it was we performed more than 100 analysis in 1 year of cultivation. Okay. Now it's just a control, just a quality control.
Okay, so I can also comment on this because even though I'm not involved in the specific program of monitoring of this disease in the nursery, what we do, we collect samples of soil or plants. So first of all, it's needed, absolutely needed, a visual recognition of any kind of symptoms that may emerge from the seedling stage. And if some plants are wilting or dying, all the pot and also the surrounding pots should be removed and brought in another separate place. Otherwise, they could be a source of contamination. And also, when there are some symptoms, it might be also not necessarily a pathogen. It could be the seed that is not well germinating. But usually when you see browning of leaves or browning of the stem at the basis, this is probably related to a pathogen that not necessarily is only Phytophthora. It can be Rhizoctonia solani, can be Sclerotinia, Sclerotiorum, or other fungi that are very frequent at the nursery level. Fusarium also.
Yes, yes. Our staff is trained about that. They have a protocol. They removed. I don't remember if 2 or 3 posts on the top, on the bottom, left or right. Okay. Yes. They make a kind of buffer for to be sure that any disease cannot spread.
Cannot spread. So in fact, in the mini course that I'm giving in January, we will consider these aspects of diagnosis, recognition of the pathogen, and even isolation of the pathogen, even though this requires some additional equipments that that are not available yet in your laboratory. But maybe through future project we can be able, or we might be able to purchase. But anyway, it's important to have the capacity to recognize the pathogen at the very beginning, at very early stage. And if something develops, to be able to recognize the possible or potential pathogen and act immediately on that to isolate the focus of the disease.
Thank you for that feedback. Thank you.
Yes, there are also some kits that are very similar to the COVID-19 kits that we've been using for a lot of time. And there's a company that produced these kits for Rhizoctonia, Fusarium, Phytophthora. So the main, they don't get the species name, but they get to the genus name. And usually they are sufficiently specific and let's say allowed to recognize the pathogen at the beginning. If we have some doubt, we can use this kind of kits. These are based on antibodies, specific antibodies. But unfortunately, with antibodies, you cannot get to the species level, but you can get to the genus level at least. So they are quite reliable.
It's enough to decide if you have to eliminate the plants or not.
Exactly. You don't need to be a mycologist. In this case, you just need a quick answer.
You have just to preserve the healthy plants from the...
Yes, they are usually adopted, for instance, in the turf management, when they have to decide which fungicide should be used to specifically inhibit a specific pathogen. Any other questions?
No, Doctor, I think it is okay. The capacity is good enough.
Okay.
From the point of the clinic, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Then.
Thank you very much.
And see you next week on the 19th at 1:30. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
We shall.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Recording stopped.
Bene.